Chapter 1. The Contract Ends. The wedding had not been a celebration of love, but a negotiation between two powerful families. Kieran Storme still remembered the cold marble floor of the hotel ballroom that night, the blinding camera flashes, and the endless murmurs of socialites buzzing about the merger between Storme Enterprises and Knox Conglomerate. He had been dressed in a sharp white suit, his tie choking him like a chain. Across from him, Aurelian Knox stood in black, elegant and expressionless, the perfect Enigma heir who could silence a room with one glance. After the vows were spoken, empty words recited more for the reporters than themselves, they had slipped into their honeymoon suite in silence. Instead of wedding bliss, there had been a thick folder waiting on the bedside table. Aurelian had opened it with steady hands, sliding it across the table toward Kieran. "A contract," Aurelian had said calmly, voice too even for a man who had just gotten married. 2 years. We play the perfect husbands, silence the board, and keep the vultures out of our family's throats. After that, we divorce. Kieran's friend had arched a brow, lips twitching with dry humor. Divorce before dessert. Romantic. But he had signed. They both had. The contract had sealed not just their marriage, but its expiration date. 2 years later. The contract was still there, tucked into the drawer of Aurelian's office, gathering dust. But their marriage looked nothing like the one they had signed up for. "Stop hogging the blanket, Knox," Kieran groaned one chilly morning, trying to yank the quilt back from the man sprawled beside him. "You kicked me 3 times last night, Storme," Aurelian replied smoothly without opening his eyes. "I'm simply protecting myself from further abuse." Kieran narrowed his eyes. "You're 6'2", with muscles like a damn marble statue, and you need a blanket shield to protect you from me?" Aurelian cracked one golden eye open, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Your elbows are deadly weapons." It had been like this for months now. Arguments that weren't arguments. Laughter tangled in sarcasm, the easy comfort of routine. They shared breakfast, bickered about who ruined the eggs, and more often than not ended their nights with tangled sheets and soft sighs. Their lovemaking wasn't the desperate passion Kieran had imagined from the stories he had heard about enigmas being territorial and unrestrained. Aurelian never nodded inside him, never crossed a line, always careful, as though he were holding back something sharp. Kieran didn't push. He was content with what they had, even if sometimes late at night he wondered what would happen once the 2 years ended. Family intervenes. "Mother called again," Kieran muttered over toast one morning, butter knife clattering against the plate. Aurelian glanced up from his tablet, brows raised. "And?" "She wanted to know if I'm still alive. Apparently marrying you meant I must have been buried under ice and silence by now." Aurelian's lips curved faintly. "She doesn't know you're the one who steals the covers." Kieran threw a grape at him. "Don't pretend you're charming, Knox. You're terrifying. To anyone else, maybe. But to Kieran, the man sitting across from him with bed hair and his tie slung loose was no longer just an Enigma husband forced upon him. He was his. The day it cracked. The Storm office was buzzing with activity when Kieran arrived with a file tucked under his arm. The deal Aurelian had been negotiating required urgent documents, and Kieran, being efficient and stubbornly loyal despite the contract, had taken it upon himself to deliver them personally. He walked into Aurelian's private floor, nodding at the secretaries before stopping dead in his tracks at the sight through the glass wall. Aurelian, smiling, laughing. His usually cold, perfect husband was leaning comfortably against the edge of his desk, eyes warm and golden as he hugged another man. Tall, beautiful, charming, with beautiful features that looked Omega soft, the stranger clung to him like an old flame. Their voices were muted through the glass, but the intimacy of it hit Kieran like a blow to the chest. The folder slipped slightly in his grip. His heart burned, then iced over. Of course. The world had always whispered about Aurelian's first love. Lysander, a beautiful, charming Omega he had been inseparable from before the arranged marriage, the one he had been forced to give up for duty. Kieran had ignored the rumors, laughed them off. But seeing Aurelian alive in a way he never was with him, was something else. Kieran didn't enter the room. He left the file on the secretary's desk and walked away. The divorce papers. That night, the house felt too large, too empty. Kieran poured himself a glass of wine, staring at the contract they had signed 2 years ago. His reflection in the glass mocked him, an alpha who had allowed himself to fall in love with a man who never truly belonged to him. 2 years, he whispered to himself. That was the deal. His hand shook slightly as he drew up the divorce papers, neat signatures and legal stamps finalizing the words neither of them had spoken aloud. He left them on Aurelian's desk, and sent the digital copy to his email and packed a small bag, and booked himself a 1-week trip out of the city. A retreat, he told himself. Time to breathe, time to forget. But as he zipped his suitcase shut, his chest ached with a truth he refused to admit even to himself. He wasn't leaving because of the contract. He was leaving because he loved Aurelian too much to stand in the way of his happiness. Chapter 2. The Feral Enigma. Aurelian. Knox was not a man who panicked. At least that was what the world believed. For years, he had built an empire on composure. He sat through boardroom betrayals with a smile, dismantled competitors with a flick of his pen, and walked through the fire of media scandals without a bead of sweat. Calm, untouchable, unbreakable. But that morning, as he opened his inbox and saw the subject line, divorce agreement, the world stopped. He clicked it open. A digital copy signed by Kieran, his alpha husband, his Kieran. The words blurred on the screen. His hands went cold, fingers stiff around the phone. His feet felt like they had turned to stone. For a long moment, he couldn't even breathe. No? The whisper left him before he realized. No, no, no. The realization. The night before, he had stayed late at the office. It wasn't unusual. Aurelian was a workaholic, and Kieran had long gotten used to his late nights. He had even tried to call Kieran, intending to tell him not to wait up, but the call had gone unanswered. He hadn't thought much of it then. Now, staring at the divorce papers, his calm facade cracked open like shattered glass. Kieran. His voice trembled for the first time in years. He dialed immediately. Straight to voicemail. Again. 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 He rose so suddenly his chair toppled backward with a crash. He ran to his car, accelerated, and reached to his house within 5 minutes. Upon entering, he called for Kieran loudly but got no answer because the whole house was empty. Behind, his secretary rushed into his house, startled, but one look at his face froze her mid-step. Find him, Aurelian ordered, voice hoarse, low, almost feral. Every villa, every hotel, every private property under his name. Search the entire damn country if you have to. I want my husband back. The secretary swallowed hard, nodding. Yes, sir. His men scattered, but for Aurelian, it wasn't fast enough. Each hour stretched like a knife twisting in his chest. By the second day, he had stopped sleeping. By the third, he was no longer Aurelian Knox, the calm, untouchable billionaire. He was something raw, dangerous, instinct clawing beneath his skin. An enigma denied by his mate. The capture. The countryside villa was small, secluded, quiet. Birds sang in the garden. The smell of pine drifted through the windows. Kieran thought he had hidden well. He hadn't expected Aurelian to find him so quickly. When the door slammed open, Kieran froze mid-step. His suitcase sat half-packed on the floor. His glass of water trembled in his hand. And in the doorway stood Aurelian, not the composed, elegant man in tailored suits. This Aurelian's hair was disheveled, eyes bloodshot and burning gold, his breath heavy with unleashed pheromones. He looked like a predator cornering prey. Kieran's lips parted. Aurelian? No words came after that because Aurelian moved. In 2 strides, he was across the room, snatching Kieran's wrist with bruising force, the glass shattering on the floor. You think you can run from me? Aurelian's voice was a growl, trembling with rage and fear. You think you can disappear from my life without a word? Without a fight? Kieran struggled, startled. Let go! You're hurting me. Aurelian dragged him, ignoring his protests, hauling him out of the villa like a man possessed. His men averted their eyes. None dared interfere. Chained. The mansion doors slammed shut behind them. Aurelian shoved Kieran into their bedroom, the same one that had been their shared refuge for 2 years, now turned into a prison. Chains clinked. Cold iron wrapped around Kieran's wrists, locking him to the headboard before he even processed what was happening. His eyes widened. Aurelian, have you lost your mind? Yes. The word was guttural, raw, no hesitation. If losing my mind is what it takes to keep you here, then yes. His pheromones flooded the air, thick, heavy, suffocating. The atmosphere buzzed, charged with desperate possession. Kieran's breathing quickened, body reacting instinctively even as his mind screamed. You can't. This isn't. Never again, Aurelian whispered, climbing onto the bed, his forehead pressed against Kieran's. His hands trembled as they cupped his face, almost reverent despite the chains. Never again will you leave me. He pressed his mouth to Kieran's, harsh at first, then breaking, desperate. Pheromones seeped deeper, washing through Kieran's senses until resistance wavered. And then, pain, sharp and blazing on his neck. Aurelian's fangs sank in, marking him permanently. Kieran gasped, tears stinging his eyes, not from pain but from the overwhelming reality of it. The bond he thought Aurelian never wanted, sealed in one feral act. The consummation. The night blurred. Aurelian's body trembled, as if he was holding back an ocean of emotion that had been dammed for 2 years. His touches were frantic, consuming, every kiss a plea, every thrust a declaration. Mine, he growled against Kieran's skin. Mine. You'll never leave me. You're mine. Aurelian even nodded him and hugged him more tightly. Kieran's tears slid down his temples, caught between anger, confusion, and the heartbreaking realization that Aurelian wasn't letting go. When it ended, when the storm passed, Aurelian collapsed against him, chest heaving. His arms wrapped tightly around Kieran's chained body, holding him as if letting go meant losing him forever. His voice was broken when he whispered into Kieran's hair. Never again. Never leave me. Over and over. Until the words became a prayer, a vow, and a chain stronger than the iron around Kieran's wrists. Chapter 3. The Misunderstandings. Shatter. The morning light streamed through half-closed curtains, painting golden streaks across the bedroom. Kieran lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the chain still cool around his wrist. His body bore the evidence of what had happened last night, of what Aurelian had done. He turned his head. Aurelian slept beside him, arm draped protectively across his waist, face calm in slumber for the first time in days. Kieran's heart clenched. The mark on his neck pulsed faintly, binding him in ways no contract ever could. His voice was hoarse when he finally broke the silence. Why now, Aurelian? Golden eyes opened immediately, sharp, alert, as if he had been awake all along. Kieran's voice trembled with anger and pain. Why now? Why didn't you mark me before? Why not me now? When I was ready to walk away for your happiness? Why bind me to you when all I wanted was to set you free? Aurelian sat up slowly, running a hand down his face. For once, his expression wasn't unreadable. It was raw, haunted. Because, he began quietly, if I hadn't, I would have lost you forever. The truth comes out. Kieran's laugh was bitter. That was the deal, wasn't it? 2 years, divorce. You would finally go back to your first love. Stop. Aurelian's tone was sharp. His hand tightened on Kieran's. Don't ever call him that again. Kieran froze. What? Aurelian's gaze softened, though his voice shook. Kieran, I tore that contract apart on our first anniversary. I burned it with my own hands. I never intended to let you go. The alpha blinked, shock flickering in his eyes. You, what? I didn't mark you before, Aurelian admitted, lowering his gaze, because I thought you weren't ready, because I didn't want to cage you. I wanted you to stay by choice, not chains. I thought, if I waited, you'd see I loved you. The words struck Kieran like thunder. His heart raced, but anger still lingered. And Lysander, Your precious Lysander you couldn't stop smiling at? Aurelian pinched the bridge of his nose, almost exasperated. Lysander Vale is my best friend. Yes, the world believes he was my first love. That was deliberate. He let them think so. He isn't even an Omega, Kieran. He's an Enigma like me. He just happens to look like a delicate Omega but can actually kill people with just a snap of his fingers. What? Kieran whispered. We staged it all. The closeness, the rumors, the romance. It kept gold diggers away from him, and it kept board members away from me. The truth is, he's only ever been my brother in everything but blood. Aurelian's eyes grew distant. That day you saw us, Lysander had come to ask me for a favor. Flashback. The office scene. Lysander leaned against the desk, twirling a pen between elegant fingers. Aurelian, do you know what's harder than handling a billion-dollar company? Aurelian arched a brow. You're about to tell me anyway. Lysander smirked. Convincing your best friend's alpha husband's alpha best friend to date you. Aurelian stilled. Evander Reese? Yes, Lysander sighed dramatically. The man is infuriating. Gorgeous, sharp-tongued, and absolutely immune to my charm. He looks at me like I'm an annoying fly, but I'm telling you, Aurelian, I'm in love. Aurelian groaned, rubbing his temples. Lysander, don't roll your eyes. You're the one married to Kieran, his best friend. I need your help, Knox. Otherwise, Evander will never give me the time of day. And then they had laughed like old friends who hadn't seen each other in 2 years. Hugging in fond reunion. When Aurelian finished recounting, Kieran's lips parted in stunned silence. Lysander is pursuing Evander? Yes. Aurelian almost smiled. Aggressively. But then Aurelian's expression darkened, his voice dropping. When you vanished, Kieran, I almost lost myself and went feral, but he was the one who helped me search for you. Flashback. The Enigma's feral search. He's gone. Aurelian's roar shook the walls of his office. His usually calm voice shattered into a feral growl. I can't find him. I can't smell him. I can't breathe without him. He tore through files, maps, locations, his hands trembling violently. His men stood at the doorway, terrified. Lysander was the only one who approached, grabbing his shoulders. Aurelian, look at me, buddy. We'll find him. I'll help you. Don't lose yourself now. You'll never forgive yourself if you do. He left me, Aurelian whispered, voice broken, almost crying. My alpha left me. Lysander held his gaze, firm, very serious. Then fight for him. Don't let him go. I'll track him if I have to. And he did, Aurelian said softly, returning to the present. He found you. I brought you back. I couldn't. Kieran, I couldn't survive if you left me. The confession. Kieran's throat tightened. His anger, his hurt, his fear, all tangled with the truth now laid bare before him. Aurelian reached for his hand, hesitant, almost afraid. I was smitten with you from the start, Kieran. From the very moment you glared at me during our wedding vows, I was gone. But I didn't want to force you into chains you didn't choose. So I waited. 2 years I waited. And then you disappeared. His voice broke. I couldn't wait any longer. Kieran's breath hitched. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, but he blinked them back. His chest ached with something fierce and tender all at once. You're an idiot, he whispered hoarsely. A complete, absolute idiot. Aurelian's lips twitched faintly. And yet, yours. The alpha stared at him silent for a long time. Then with a shuddering breath he whispered, I'm sorry for not trusting you, for running away, for believing lies I should have questioned. His voice cracked. I thought I wasn't enough. Aurelian leaned forward, pressing their foreheads together, chains cold between them, but the warmth of their bond burning stronger. You are everything, Aurelian murmured. My alpha, my husband, mine. And for the first time in days, Kieran let himself believe it. Chapter 4. Apologies and Healing. The morning after the storm was quiet, except for the sound of soft breaths and the faint clink of chains being unlocked. Aurelian leaned over the bed, his hands trembling as he freed Kieran's wrists. The Alpha blinked groggily, eyes still swollen from the tears of last night. The moment the last chain fell, Kieran sat up. His throat tightened as he looked at the mark on his neck in the mirror's reflection. It glowed faintly with Aurelian's pheromonal bond, sealing him forever. Kieran turned, eyes glassy. I'm sorry. The words tumbled out before he could stop them. I was stupid. I saw what I wanted to see, believed what I wanted to believe. I thought you wanted someone else. I thought I wasn't enough. And instead of asking you, I just... His voice broke, trembling. I ran. I hurt you. Aurelian crossed the space in 2 strides, pulling him into a crushing embrace. He pressed kisses down Kieran's newly marked neck, almost desperate, like he had to reassure himself the mark was real. Don't apologize, Aurelian whispered fiercely. Just don't vanish from my life again. I'd burn the world down to find you. Do you hear me, Kieran? The world. Nothing, no one matters if I don't have you. Kieran's eyes stung again. He tried to laugh, wiping at his face. You're such a dramatic bastard. Aurelian pulled back just enough to smirk faintly, thumb brushing his cheek. Only for you. Domestic healing. Later that morning, the smell of sizzling butter and eggs filled the kitchen. Kieran patted in, still sore, hair a mess. He froze at the sight. Aurelian, in a fitted shirt with sleeves rolled up, actually cooking. You? Kieran blinked. You're cooking? Yes. Aurelian plated perfectly browned toast, then turned with narrowed eyes. And you're supposed to be sitting, not standing. I'm not fragile, Kieran scoffed, leaning against the counter. You were nodded 3 times last night, Aurelian deadpanned. Sit. Kieran flushed scarlet. You don't have to say it out loud. Aurelian marched over, lifted him effortlessly, and set him on the counter stool. You're not lifting a finger. I'll feed you if I have to. Kieran groaned, hiding his smile. You're insufferable. Say you love me instead, Aurelian murmured, sliding a plate before him. Kieran rolled his eyes, but his lips twitched. I love you, idiot. Aurelian's answering grin was blinding. On the other side with Lysander and Evander. Meanwhile, in the towering glass headquarters of Reese Industries, Lysander Vale strolled in with 2 steaming cups of coffee. He ignored the stunned receptionist and the security guard, walking straight to the CEO's office. Evander Reese didn't even look up from his papers when the door opened. Vale, you're trespassing again. Lysander smirked, setting the coffee down with a flourish. Trespassing? No. Visiting the love of my life? Yes. Evander finally looked up, sharp gray eyes narrowing. You're impossible. Flattering, Lysander purred, sliding into the chair opposite. 1 sugar, no cream. I remember how you like it. Evander took the cup reluctantly, muttering, Stalker. Persistent, Lysander corrected cheerfully. He leaned forward, chin resting on his hand. Have you considered just giving in? You'd save both of us a lot of time. Evander snorted. You're a spoiled playboy with too much money and too little shame. Ah, Lysander's grin widened. You noticed. Evander rubbed his temple. What could you possibly want from me? Lysander's expression softened, sincerity slipping through his usual theatrics. Everything. Your time, your laughter, the way you roll your eyes at me, your trust. I want you, Evander. Not as a game, not as a fling, as mine. Evander's heart gave a dangerous lurch, but he masked it with a scoff. You're insane. Lysander leaned back, utterly unbothered. Perhaps, but I'll keep coming every morning with your coffee until you call me yours, even if it takes years. For the first time, Evander faltered, staring at him with something unreadable. Lysander caught it, the faintest crack in his walls, and his smile softened. Oh, darling, he murmured. You'll see. No fortress can keep me out. Back to Aurelian and Kieran. That evening, Kieran lounged on the sofa, still grumbling as Aurelian fussed with blankets around him. I'm not an invalid, Kieran complained. You're mine, Aurelian countered, tucking the blanket tighter. He kissed his alpha's forehead gently. And I'll take care of you, whether you like it or not. Kieran bit back a smile, warmth flooding his chest. He curled into his husband's side, breathing in his scent, heart finally light. For the first time since their contract began 2 years ago, Kieran didn't wonder about the future. He already knew. Chapter 5. New Beginnings. The morning sunlight spilled into their penthouse bedroom, warm against pale sheets. Kieran groaned softly, pressing a hand to his stomach. For days he had been feeling nauseous, mood swinging wildly between craving spicy noodles at midnight and gagging at the smell of coffee. At first he blamed stress, but as the days stretched on, suspicion bloomed. Finally, one morning, standing barefoot in their luxurious bathroom with a trembling stick in his hand, Kieran's eyes widened at the 2 pink lines staring back at him. His breath caught. "Oh, hell no!" He froze, then shouted, "Aurelian!" The Enigma came rushing in, half-dressed in a silk shirt, hair still damp from his shower. "What? Did someone hurt you? Did you fall?" Kieran turned the test toward him with shaking hands. I'm pregnant." For a second, silence hung in the room. Aurelian blinked once, twice, his face drained of all color. Then he swayed, catching himself against the doorframe. You're carrying our child?" His voice cracked on the word. "Yes," Kieran snapped, both embarrassed and overwhelmed. "So stop looking like you've seen a ghost." But Aurelian was already across the room, pulling him into his arms with a sob of laughter. He buried his face against Kieran's neck, shaking. "Mine. You're mine. And now our baby. I'll protect you both with my life, I swear it, Kieran. With my life." Kieran, startled by the raw emotion, hugged him back, whispering, "Idiot. I wasn't going anywhere anyway." Pregnancy days. Aurelian turned into a monster husband. He massaged Kieran's back, insisted on feeding him every 3 hours, glared at the chauffeur for hitting a bump too hard, and growled at anyone who stood closer than 3 feet. Kieran, lounging on the sofa with his swollen belly, huffed, "You've become even more possessive than before." Aurelian leaned down, kissing the curve of his belly reverently. "And I'll only get worse." Kieran rolled his eyes, but his lips curved. Baby shower and best friends. On Kieran's 5th month, their sprawling garden lit up with pastel decorations for the baby shower. Family, friends, and dignitaries attended, but it was Lysander and Evander's entrance that stole attention. Kieran, flushed and round with child, walked over and awkwardly bowed his head. "Lysander, I owe you an apology. I misunderstood and I dragged you into it. But Lysander interrupted with a warm grin, pulling him into a brotherly hug. "Don't you dare apologize. You've always been my brother-in-law in my heart. I was never angry with you for anything." Then he sighed dramatically, turning to glare at Evander, who stood stiff in a dark suit. "But your best friend is giving me a hard time. Do you know how exhausting it is to chase a stubborn alpha? And my best friend just abandoned me to a war." Everyone laughed warmly. Even Kieran chuckled, and Evander flushed crimson, muttering, "You're insufferable, you lunatic Enigma." Lysander's grin only widened. The gala kiss. Weeks later, at a glittering charity gala, Lysander cornered Evander against a marble column. Evander hissed under his breath, "Why do you keep following me everywhere?" Lysander leaned in, wicked smirk playing on his lips. "Because you're mine." Before Evander could retort, Lysander kissed him. Hard, unapologetic, in front of half the city's elite. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Evander's face burned, but his hands fisted in Lysander's jacket, and he didn't push him away. Lysander's heart roared in triumph. Finally. Best friends outing. 2 months before Evander and Lysander's wedding, Kieran and Evander slipped away for a quiet outing by the lake. Evander sighed as he skimmed stones across the water. "He's relentless. He doesn't give me a moment's peace." Kieran laughed softly, hand resting on his swollen stomach. "And yet, you haven't cut him off either." Evander scowled. "He's infuriating. But sometimes when he looks at me, He trailed off, ears red. Kieran smiled knowingly. "That's how it starts. Don't fight it too hard, Evan. Happiness isn't always logical. For the first time, Evander didn't argue. Lysander and Evander's grand wedding. The grand cathedral was filled with gold and ivory flowers when Lysander and Evander finally stood at the altar. Aurelian and Kieran sat in the front row, Kieran's hand resting on his round belly, now 7 months along. When Lysander leaned in to kiss his new husband, Aurelian whispered to Kieran, "Looks like our best friends are as insane as us." Kieran chuckled, squeezing his hand. Maybe worse. That night, Lysander wasted no time permanently marking Evander, whispering against his neck, "Now you can't escape me, ever." Evander, breathless, whispered back, "If I wanted to escape, I wouldn't have married you." The birth of the twins. 2 months later, Kieran's cries filled the private hospital suite. Hours of pain melted into trembling relief as he held not one, but 2 tiny bundles against his chest. Aurelian wept openly, kissing his alpha's forehead and the crowns of his children. "You did it. You gave me everything." When Lysander and Evander arrived to see the twins, Lysander cradled one carefully, grinning. "Godfather, has a nice ring, doesn't it?" He leaned toward Evander, whispering against his marked neck, "One day, you'll be the mother of our child too. Just wait." Then he kissed Evander softly. Evander blushed furiously, but his arms tightened around the baby. Weeks later, the 4 of them sat together in Aurelian and Kieran's garden, 2 couples, laughter echoing, children nestled safe in their parents' arms. Kieran leaned against Aurelian, their fingers intertwined. His eyes softened as he watched Lysander tease Evander while bouncing one of the twins. For the first time in years, Kieran's smile was unburdened, genuine, and radiant. He turned to Aurelian, whispering, "I'm happy." Aurelian kissed him slowly, reverently, whispering back, "Forever." And for once, everyone believed it.